Hello everyone, this is Himanshu Rathore. Okay, now as we have promised you that we will be coming with the exclusive course of Modern India for Central Armed Police Forces Assistant Commandant Examination 2019 and CDS itself. So here we are with our first chapter today, the Advent of Europeans. So starting with my introduction, my name is Himanshu Rathore and I have been selected as an Assistant Commandant in Sashastra Seema Build 2017 in CAPF AC exam. So let's talk about the agenda today of what we'll be reading in the chapters. First, we'll be discussing about the trade relations with Europeans, various kind of what were the trade relations before the modern period or in the medieval period, how did they change when the Arabs or the Ottoman Turks ruled, and then how did it eventually led to the invention of a sea route or discovery of a sea route. Then what were the different Europeans that came to India? We will be studying about them, their contributions to the Indian history, what changes did they brought to the Indian society, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the English, the French. The English, how did they manage to rule about more than 200 years in the country, and how did they consolidated their power? So in this chapter we will be reading about how did English people eliminated all other Europeans or all other competitors from the Indian market and became the supreme traders in India. We will be discussing about the Anglo-French rivalry, which was shown in the form of 3 Carnatic wars. And then what were the causes of the British success? Like how were Britishers different from all these Europeans that they were able to rule India for such a long period of time? So let's start with our first topic, trade relations with Europeans. Before starting, let me show you a map so that you get a deeper understanding how trade was carried out in the medieval period. So the trade was basically carried out between the Europe and India partially by land and partially by sea. The European traders used to come by land till the Arabian coast, and from the Arab coast they used to travel by sea to the South India. So this way the trade used to carry on. But as soon as the Roman Empire fell, the Arabs established their domination in Egypt and the Arabian region, or Persia as we say it. Now in 1453 what happened? Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks and the state monopoly was established of Islamic rulers over the trade route. So this affected the European trade as they had to give state duties to all the goods that were passing through that, and the trade was not lucrative or profitable anymore. Okay, so this was a major reason that a need for a new sea route has to be found so that the Arab intermediaries could be eliminated from the system. Therefore, the Europeans were keen to find a direct sea route to India. Now, there were other factors also for the sea route to India. Now, spirit of Renaissance. The spirit of Renaissance was very important factor in the 15th century, as we all know, because Europe had at that time made great advances in the art of shipbuilding and navigation. So there were all over eagerness all over the Europe that at least we should carry out adventurous sea voyages to reach the unknown of the East. Okay, and there were also other factors. The economic development of the many regions of Europe was a major factor. As economically development led to the increase in demand for the Indian goods. Spices of India were very famous as these were used in meat preservation. The black pepper, which is also known as Yavan Priya, was a very costly commodity at that time. So the demand for Oriental luxury goods increased. Now, as we say, necessity is the mother of invention. So the discovery of sea route happened. And who were the first people? The Portuguese were the first to find a direct sea route to India. Vasco da Gama, a person named came with 3 ships at Calicut in May 1498, and he was led by a Gujarati pilot named Abdul Majid. So you have to remember some important names in history also. Otherwise, can't get all questions right in history, especially in modern India. So what will be important? I'll be telling you. Don't worry about that. Now this date is important, May 1498, because this profoundly affected the course of Indian history. Okay, these were the first European who came by a sea route to India. Now he was accorded a very friendly reception by Hindu ruler Zamorin. Now they came as traders, but at that time trading system had numerous participants. For example, Indians, Arabs, Africans, Chinese, Javanese, etc. And the trade was carried out according some rule. Okay, it was not like that there was loot and piracy was going on. No, but Portuguese wanted to monopolize this hugely profitable trade, and they wanted to eliminate their competitors, especially the Arabs, because direct trade with India was very highly profitable. Now what happened? The Portuguese established a factory at Cochin, and they initially made Cochin their base. So the first important person that we will be studying will be the Francisco de Almeida. In 1505, he was appointed as the governor of India for 3 years. Now his vision was to make the Portuguese the master of the Indian Ocean, which was also known as the Blue Water Policy. So he consolidated and built many fortresses like at Cochin, Cannanore. These were the places he started making his establishments. The next person in the Portuguese history. Okay, let's first discuss the map of how Vasco da Gama came to India. So you can see he came to India via the Cape of Good Hope, and he reached Calicut in 1498. So next, the person is Alfonso de Albuquerque. So he acquired Goa from Sultan of Bijapur in 1510. So as you know that Goa remained an establishment of Portugal till 1960, and it was acquired by Sultan of Bijapur. Now this fact is important, so you should remember this. After that, Nino da Cunha assumed office of the governor of Portuguese interest. So his basic contribution was that he shifted headquarters from Cochin to Goa. As I had told you that the first factory was established at Cochin, so now they permanently established their headquarters at Goa. Okay, so now you will ask that why Portuguese were able to establish their headquarters and establishment so easily. So there were many favorable conditions for Portuguese. For example, at that time there was no major ruler in the southern India. Southern India was divided in very smaller kingdoms. Bahmani kingdom was not at that its peak. It was breaking down. Okay, and moreover, their navy, it was one of the most advanced navies of that time. Okay, they had cannons placed on their ships, and they also used modern military techniques. Now they also used two types of system, Pretorius and Cartage system. So Cartage system was like, if a Portuguese ship comes in front of another ship, so they had to pay a tax. Okay, this was the Cartage system. So it was like basically piracy, that if we are coming in front of you, you have to pay a tax so that you can go safely. And then it was the Pretorius. The Pretorius system was like, if a ship comes to a Portuguese harbor, then also it has to pay a tax. So in at land and sea. They had established their monopoly and they dominated the land and sea both through these systems. Okay, now let's talk about how did the Portuguese power end. Now, one more fact that I want to tell you here is that the Portuguese were bitter enemies of the Muslims and they wanted to promote Christianity. Okay, so they sent many missionaries in the Mughal court so that the Mughal emperor could be converted into Christian, but that never happened. And slowly they lost favor with the Mughals. They did encourage piracy. They did loot the other ships, which decreased their power. And more in 1612, in the Battle of Swally, the Portuguese power had ended. Now, what you should remember is that what are the main contributions of Portuguese towards the India? They introduced tomatoes, potatoes, tobacco, chilies, pineapple, etc. in India. I think UPSC is asked also that potatoes were introduced by whom? So potatoes and tobacco were introduced by the Portuguese. Okay. So this was all about the Portuguese rule. Now we will be moving. Okay, let's also see the major establishment of Portugal. In this map, you can easily see the major establishment of Portugal, and moreover, when they were established. Chronologically, it has been shown. Like first of all, Surat, then Daman, then Dadra, then Goa in 1509 to 1961, then Bengaluru, then there was port at Cannanore, then Calicut, where Vasco da Gama came first. In Cochin was a major establishment of them. Nagapattinam, Pulicat, and Masulipattnam. These are all the establishments of the Portuguese. Okay, so this ends about the Portuguese. Now let's start with the Dutch. So Dutch also came as traders. They had commercial interests. The lucrative Eastern trade brought them to the Indian shores. And the Dutch East India Company was formed in 1602. And the first company or the factory that was established, sorry, it should be company here, factory here. The first factory was established at Masulipattnam in 1605. So they went on to establish many trading centers, like they established their factories in Uttar Pradesh, Bengal, Bihar, Badanagar, Chinsura, Kasim Bazar, and Patna, and many more. Those are not important. I have told you the first. Now, they had a rivalry with the English, because at that time, English people were also rising to prominence. Okay. So, there was an Anglo-Dutch rivalry, and they had conflicting commercial interests with the English. So, how did it end? This ended in 1667, by which the Britishers withdrew all their claims on Indonesia. Actually, the Dutch had acquired Indonesia. If you would have read world history, then you would be knowing that Indonesia was ruled by Dutch for many years. So Dutch claimed all of Indonesia and they retired from India. So this was a compromise that came in 1667 between Britishers and the Dutch. And the Third Anglo-Dutch War was there, which led to this. Now this ends the Dutch. Okay, let's now see which European settlements in India were established by different countries. So here you can see, till now we have read the Dutch settlements and the Portuguese settlements. So see, you can see the map. For Dutch settlements, you can see the Pulicat was there, and Nagapattinam was there, Trincomalee, Matara in Sri Lanka. So these were the settlements of Dutch, and Portuguese settlements I have discussed already in detail before. Now we'll come to our main protagonist of this chapter, the English, who ruled India for about 200 years, more than 200 years. And Now, how did the British East India Company was established? It was established in 1600 when Queen Elizabeth I issued a charter to the East India Company to conduct trading activities in the East. Okay, so first in 1608, Captain William Hawkins arrived in the court of Jahangir. Okay, he was the first person, so you should remember his name. He is an important personality. So first factory was established in India in 1613 in Surat, the first English factory. Okay, so this is also very important. Slowly and steadily they started founding ground in India, because at that time they had many competitors. The Portuguese were already established many factories and were there in the Mughal court. After that, in 1615, Sir Thomas Roe visited the Mughal court, and he was successful by 1618 to obtaining two farmans confirming free trade with exemption from inland tolls. Farman actually means free trade with exemption from inland tolls. In 1616, then another factory was established at Masulipatam. So in this way, slowly and steadily, the English were founding their ground in India, and you will see slowly they will, from being traders, they will start interfering in matters of polity and have an ambition of becoming rulers of India. Now in 1632, Golden Farman was issued by the Sultan of Golconda. This gave privileges, and on payment of 500 pagodas of a year, the British earned a privilege of trading freely in the ports of Golconda. So now you can see they had already got privileges in the Western India. Now they are getting in the hinterland, that is Golconda, Hyderabad region. Now in 1651, Shah Shuja granted the company the right to trade after paying duty. 3000 rupees was that duty, I think, yes. In 1662, Bombay was gifted to King Charles II by the King of Portugal as dowry when Charles married to Princess Catherine. So now this Bombay was given to the company for lease, okay, for payment of 10 pounds in 1668. So all the establishments now were moved from Surat to Bombay, and Bombay became their seat of presidency in the Western India. Now in 1691, they get the imperial order from Aurangzeb to continue their trade in Bengal in lieu of payment of rupees 3000 a year. Now in 1717, Farooq Sayyar, who was the Mughal king at that time, issued 3 farmans to the British East India Company, and these farmans are also known as the Magna Carta of the company, because they gave many trade concessions to the company. Now the company was permitted to issue dastaks for transportation of such goods. Dastaks were the passes which could be given for the transportation of any good. And in Bengal, the company's import and exports were completely exempted from additional custom duties with the payment of rupees 3000. Coins minting was allowed by the British. So you can see here that the Mughal king did not realize what he was doing, because if in your house itself you are giving someone permission to minting coins, so it's like a parallel government. There were other concessions given in different states like Hyderabad. In Surat, an annual payment of 10,000 rupees, and the East India Company was exempted from levy of all duties. So many trade privileges were granted in Bengal, Gujarat and Hyderabad. So as you can see, through these farmans, they were able to now establish their stronghold or the trading rights in the Eastern India also. Now here I want to tell you a fact that Kolkata was established by Job Charnock, and Kolkata comprises of 3 villages, that is Sutanati, Govindpur, and Kalikata. So this fact can be asked, so you should remember this. Now, after the Britishers, the last and but not the least, the French came to India. And what was the story behind formation? As there was the king at that time, King Louis the 14, and he said that let's do something. Other Europeans are advancing so much, so the minister of the king, the Colbert, he formed a French East India Company in 1664. So you should know that these were the last Europeans to come as traders, because UPSC can ask chronological type of questions like which arrange the following Europeans in order of the chronological order, and then they can give options: Britishers, Danes, Dutch, Portuguese, and French, and then they can give different options. So you should remember the chronological order of the coming of the Europeans. Now in 1667, they had established a factory at Surat, which was the first factory. Now in 1669, they again set up a factory in Masulipatam. So you see, these were the two main centers. Whichever European came, they established the factory at Surat and at Masulipatam. But their main two towns, the French two towns, were the Chandernagore, which was near Calcutta, where in 1674 they established a township, and 1674 itself Pondicherry was founded. At that time, the French governor was Francois Martin. Okay, so but French East India Company didn't get immediate success. There were many setbacks to the French company. Like there was a rivalry with the Dutch, okay, and many other factors which didn't lead to the establishment of French factories. So we won't go in detail of these. The other important aspect from French is that in 1742, Lord Dupleix becomes the governor. He is a very important personality in our reading, and we should know more about him. So when Dupleix came, he changed the objective of the French East India Company. He realized that not only commercial motive, we have to extend our plans to imperial expedition, so that the French could establish their stronghold in the Carnatic or the Indian South, which led to the Anglo-French rivalry. The ambitions of Dupleix were a very huge factor in leading to the three wars. Anglo-French rivalry can be seen in three Carnatic wars. So what were these wars? These were the three wars fought on the Indian soil for supremacy. Now there is a story behind this also. Britishers and French traditionally or historically have been rivals right from the 12th century. Okay, this was nothing new. Wherever in the world they got a chance to fight, they fought. Okay, so Australian War of Succession takes place at that time. Australia is a country, neutral country, where the Queen has to succeed, but the French and the Spanish and the Portuguese are against the Queen, because according to the Silesian law, Queen cannot become a heir, or a woman cannot become a heir. But the Queen is supported by the English. So here again they become rivals. So Austrian War of Succession is a background for the first Carnatic War. Did you get this? Now here you can see the picture of Robert Dupleix. This was the person. Okay, let's go and see where is our Carnatic region. So the modern Carnatic is the Tamil Nadu, the Andhra, the coastal region. Here you can see the capital of Carnatic, Arcot, and you can also see Trichinopoly. So this is Carnatic. So let's now study about the first Carnatic War. Carnatic was the region which was hinterland of the Coromandel coast, was known as the Carnatic region. So this was nothing, this was carried out during 1742-1748. This was fought. Extension of the Anglo-French War in Europe. So this was basically an extension of the Anglo-French War in Europe caused by the Australian War of Succession, which I had already discussed with you. So you should know the immediate cause of the war. Now in 1746, what happened? There was an English navy under Barnet. He seized some French ships to provoke France. Now, in retaliation, in 1746, French captured Madras under Law Bourdonnais. Now, in that response, in 1748, British attacked Pondicherry. Okay, so you see, they were ready to fight always. But Dupleix strongly defended the Pondicherry, and the war had to have a treaty. Right through the history, that Britishers fought a war, signed a treaty, fought a war, signed a treaty. So they never like completely fought a war. Whenever they thought that yes, the resources are up or the war is futile, they signed a treaty. Okay. Now, according to this treaty, Madras was handed back to the English, and in French, they got Quebec. Quebec is in Canada. So they got some territories in North America. The Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle. This you have to remember, it's a very important treaty. So this was the first Carnatic War. But as you know, Britishers and French are always ready. So after a year, the second Carnatic War happens. Dupleix, he sought to increase his power, and now he started interfering in local disputes. The region around Carnatic, there were two people. The one was Nizam of Hyderabad and another was the Nawab of Carnatic. So Dupleix started interfering in the local disputes. So now I have made a table here so you can easily understand what was the war about. Now Nizam of Hyderabad, that is Nizamul Mulk, he died. Okay, so opportunity was provided here, and Muzaffar Jung is the grandson of Nizam, and Nazir Jung is the son of the Nizam. So here rivalry occurs for the Game of Thrones. So French side with the Muzaffar Jung and English side with Nazir Jung. Similarly, Nawab of Carnatic was crowned here. Anwaruddin Khan was crowned as Nawab of Carnatic, and Chanda Sahib, who is the son-in-law of Dost Ali, he also claims to the throne. So Chanda Sahib sides with French and Anwaruddin Khan sides with English. Now in 1749, combined armies of French, Muzaffar Jung and Chanda Sahib attack and kill Anwaruddin in the Battle of Ambur. Now the English had to retaliate. They attacked Arcot, the capital of Carnatic. So Chanda Sahib came back to protect his capital. Okay. Now the French had suffered heavy losses in this war. So Dupleix in 1754 was recalled and he was replaced by Godihu. Godihu was the French Governor General now in India, and he did negotiations with the British and signed a Treaty of Pondicherry in 1755. So this was the Second Carnatic War. Now what you have to remember is the time period, because chronological orders are asked. Then who were the main protagonists? The French and the English. And how did that war end? It ended with the Treaty of Pondicherry. Okay. So this was the Second Carnatic War. Now the Third Carnatic War, which was fought during 1758 to 1763, it also had a background from Europe itself. Austria had lost Silesia in the War of Succession, and they wanted to get back. get it back. So 7 years war started, and British and France again were on the opposite sides as usual, nothing new. So in 1758, French captured the English fort of Saint David. So English also started offensive tactics, and they suffered huge losses. The French suffered huge losses at Masulipatam. But the final war was due to happen, and it was the Battle of Vandivash, in which the English defeated the French, and the French rule in the India was over. They were confined to very few places. So again we have to know the protagonist. General Ayercourt, he was a very able general of the English. He defeated the French forces under Count de Lally, and he also took a general as prisoner. Pondicherry was defended by Lally, but he has to surrender eventually. So again a treaty has to be signed, and the Treaty of Paris was signed, according to which French settlements were restricted to Mahi and Pondicherry. And in this way, the Anglo-French rivalry ended, and French rule in India was restricted to only these places, the Mahi, Pondicherry and Yanam. So this was all about our Anglo-French rivalry. Now you will be thinking that what did Britishers do different that they had more success than the other Britishers? So there were many factors responsible for it. For example, the navy was superior. Okay, so we will see it turn by turn. First of all, the structure and nature of trading companies. Now you know that today PSUs are there in India. The structure, the government operates it. Similarly, the trading companies of different other nations like France, Dutch, these were operated by the state itself. The monarch had more than 60% share, and its directors were generally nominated by the monarch. So the shareholders took very little interest in promoting the prosperity of the company. But in English East India Company, it was formed through amalgamation of several rival companies at home. Therefore, the shareholders of the company had exercised considerable influence, okay, which lead to the success of the company eventually. Then the naval superiority. Royal Navy of Britain was the largest navy at that time. It was one of the modern navy, and they used, technologically they were more advanced than their other counterparts. So this was the major reason. Then the industrial revolution was occurring at that time in the Britain, and which led to invention of very new machines like spinning jenny, steam engine or the power loom. The industrial revolution reached other Europeans very late. So this was also, it created a market. Okay, so trade also was increased due to industrial revolution. Then the military skill and discipline of Britishers were very high other than the other counterparts. There were strategists who tried new tactics in warfare. Moreover, there were technological developments in military as well. Now, at that time, as you know, in 1789, there was a French Revolution. So there were not stable governments in different countries. But in Britain, there was a stable government at that time. There was a stable monarchs. However, in France, till 1815, you can see Napoleon was defeated in 1815. So there was turbulence. The Italians, they were united as late as 1861. Okay. So governments was stable in the Britishers. And last but not the least, they were not fanatic about religion. Okay. They used to spread Christianity, but they were not much interested. They were more and more interested in trade. And their primary motive was trade, which led to their expansion. So this was all about our first lecture I think you must have understood each and every aspect of how the Europeans came in India, and we'll be studying our next chapter in the next lecture. So thanks for watching. Please do like and share and subscribe this video.